Hey folks, welcome to the new week and ENC 1102. Just a couple of things I want to touch base on. I'm going to try something new this week. I'm just going to march through Module 7 here. I get the feeling that maybe some of you are not seeing or skipping through some of the material. Many of you are not, and you're doing just fine. But reading the essays and grading the essays, and I'm probably about halfway through grading the essays right now. It is Sunday afternoon and trying to get through them so that I can get the feedback to you guys. The feedback is less extensive than on the feedback for the drafts, simply because we're not revising them now, but just give you a little feedback as to my thinking in the process. Some of you are getting notes on your essays. That it might be a good idea if before the next paper, while you're going through your planning process, I am more than willing to sit down and chat with you via email or messaging, or do a meet a team Microsoft Teams meeting with you to go over your thinking, your planning, and whatnot. But I think that if you go through all the material and watch the videos that I'm posting, such as this, like the last one that I tried to give you guys feedback on, got 4 views. So maybe I'm not putting them in the right place. I'm going to try this in 3 different places or 3 different methods to get the information to you. Anyway, please engage with that. So we're stepping into poetry this week. So hopefully you have begun your reading process. But I want to go through the modules. This Module 7, which is what we're on now. So if we go to Module 7, if we go to the learning plan, on the learning plan, this maps out exactly what we're doing, but it also has what you're reading and what you need to accomplish. So for example, this Chapter 5, pages 84 to 88 on poetry, talking about reading poetry, I read it. It took me about 10 minutes. It is not a long read, but it has some good information about some of the reasons or some of the ways in which reading poetry is different and similar to reading fiction and nonfiction. A lot of it has to do with the sound components and the framework or the organizational components. But anyway, read through that so that you can speak intelligently about poetry, understanding that poetry is much more figurative than fiction. It's much more economical with its language. So like a book or a story have hundreds of pages, it may be just thousands and thousands and thousands of words to use, where a poem is going to be much more condensed, much more compact. So what that translates to is each word has maybe greater weight or potential for weight. And we'll look at the assignment here in just a minute. So read through these pages 84 to 88 in your textbook. And then the poems, after Apple Picking, Robert Frost, My Papa's Waltz, Theme for English B, To an Athlete Dying Young, America, An Ode to the Watermelon. Very diverse selection of poems, and I hope you enjoyed them. None of them are incredibly long, so it shouldn't take a long time to read them necessarily, but I really hope you're either taking notes or you're annotating in a document somehow as you're reading them, what you're thinking about them, taking into consideration important words, the meter, the rhyme, if there is rhyme, if there's not, the imagery that's being created, the voice, the speaker. Look through the material and think about reading it from multiple perspectives or with multiple ideas in mind. Then it says view the Module 7 Poetic Elements Soft Chalk presentation, which has a lot of terms and a lot of the tools that poets use when writing poetry. Years ago, I was the editor for a literary magazine for Palm Beach Community College. I think it's Palm Beach State College now. Anyway, the poetry editor for this often said that poetry was never revised. You don't revise poetry, just how it comes. And that's perfectly fine for someone. That could be your style of poetry. But more often than not, poets pain over the language that's being utilized in their work. So I've met a lot of poets over the years written a lot of poems over the years, and language is really important. So look at the tools that they're utilizing here in this soft chalk presentation. And these videos, they do not take long to watch, but they will absolutely help you in your process. I'm going to move this just a bit. We're going to go to the next. So the next page here is the readings, talking about the readings, what you want to do, kind of like an instruction framework here. Next, this is the soft chalk here. So this is talking about, let me get me out of here. And again, talking about here rhyme, rhythm, alliteration. It's a lot of the terminology that's being dealt with, talking about figurative language. So a lot of the, again, tools that they utilize. So let's go here down to next, and the videos, why we read poetry, how to read poetry, very helpful. So utilize those. Then after you've done all of that, once you've gone through all of that information, you have a framework, you have a basis of knowledge to be doing the assignment. Then come to the assignment. And the assignment is pretty simple for the task, but it is, I'll come up here. Don't do any research, rate all the poems that you've read, and then write a response that incorporates your answers to the questions below into multiple paragraphs. I would say that if you wished to bullet your post, organize it this way with these 4 bullet points that are here, I'm fine with that, but it's going to take a paragraph or so. So 4, 5, 6, 8 sentences using lines from the text to support your analysis. That's what you need to be doing as well. So you're going to choose 3 of the poems, not all of them, so 3 of the poems, and then you're going to compare them based on the following. What were your initial reactions, feelings about each of the poems? What does each of the 3 poems mean? Which words in the poems could be open for interpretation? And how might they be interpreted differently? So you're looking at these 3 poems. So say you take America and My Papa's Waltz and the theme for English B. 3 very, very different poems. So how are they similar? How are they different? What are your reactions to them? I would absolutely choose 3 poems that you kind of like, that you kind of get, that you kind of understand. Maybe 2 that you get and understand, and 1 that you're stretching yourself on. That's fine. And when it says, what do they mean? I'm not looking for a summary. Like, what do they mean? Like, what do they mean on the surface? But what does it mean? Like, what's the poet trying to get across? Like, when you look at Langston Hughes' theme for English B, like, he's trying to get something significant across in this. The watermelon. So the watermelon, like, it's funny, but it's also painful. So there's a lot of funny stuff going on, or interesting, whimsical items going on in this poem, but there's also a lot of depth to it as well. So what does it mean? Not just summarizing it. Please don't just summarize. And then which words in the poems can be open for interpretation? These poets, all of these poems and all of these poets have what I call earthquake words, and they're different degrees of earthquake. So like I'm looking at like a 5 on the Richter scale, something big, something moving the earth. So look at words that have potential for interpretation, and how might they be interpreted differently? So what are you thinking about? You're thinking about, well, how might Langston Hughes be read by Langston Hughes, or a person of color, or a person who's not who's white, someone who is a minority, someone who's in the majority, someone who's wealthy, someone who's poor. Keeping in mind, Langston Hughes is writing, he brings Harlem into this. At the time, now Harlem is a surging community up in New York now. At the time, that wasn't the case. So take those things into consideration as to how they might be interpreted differently. So how might you read the poem differently than somebody else? I read stuff differently just by who I am, and regardless of how open-minded I want to be, I have, even if unwanted, I have biases. I have the ways that I see the world that I try to break down. I try to read open-mindedly, but for sure I need to ask others how they're seeing things. So think about how it could be interpreted differently by many people. And then when you're done with that section, again, like paragraphs, not sentences. Sentences in the paragraphs, but paragraphs for sure. And then 2 peer posts. You're going to respond to two of them. When creating the 2 required peer responses, please give enough detail that you know who you're responding to. You read and understood their initial responses. Please be specific. And this absolutely, you can agree with somebody or you can disagree with somebody, but please, again, this shouldn't just be a hooray for you, you're amazing. Please put that. Great interpretation. I really like it. Here's where I came away with it. Or here's something I saw differently in that. Or I didn't see that at all in that reading of the poem. So I'm reading Frost's poem, and I didn't see that the apples might represent what you see. Okay, here's what I was looking at it at the angle I looked at it from. Anyhow, I think you understand. I'm going to try to keep this one shorter than the other, so maybe entice you guys to watch the whole thing. And if you're struggling or if you're confused or you don't know, please send me a message. I get notifications if you send me a message through the messaging system here on Canvas, or if you send me an email. I look at my emails daily. So please send me a message if you're confused or you're not understanding something. So with that being said, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the poetry. And I will be touching on the second part, the module 8. But with that, make sure that you are going through the entirety of the module so that you understand what you're supposed to be doing. There's a lot of material there. Great. Well, thank you so much. Have a great week with it. Please communicate if you need help. And I look forward to reading what you have to say. See ya.